Okay, I need 2 more rows. Now latch down 2 again, but on opposite needles. This pattern I did before with a cotton yarn for a face cloth in white and pink, and it was very pretty. I need 2 rows pink, 2 rows white. It was a different effect. I posted these to the list back a couple years. I think it was June 99 or so, or 98. Oops, wrong one again. No big deal, just leave it there. Oops. Okay. And 2 rows. And go back to the first one. You're always latching up either odd or even numbers. Oops, wrong one. Fairly thin worsted yarn, but I'm using a key plate 4, so that's why it's so airy. Okay, I'll do another 2 rows. And take it off the machine and let you have a look at the other side. Okay, I'll just knit a few rows, take it off the machine, and see what we get on the other side. Okay, I'm not quite sure how good you can see this. but this is knit 2 and do the fisherman rib on only 2 rows at a time. And that's that one side, and this is the other side. I'm not quite sure how good you can get a look at that. Okay, this one is the fisherman's rib, but taking the bottom stitch, starting the bottom stitch either one above or one below the previous one, and that on the back side, and on this side you get a zigzag line, which I think is quite pretty. Okay, and that first one down the bottom is really dense. It's very much like a honeycomb stitch. And on the back side is just plain old knitting with a little mark in the center. That's it. Okay, I'm back with a few other things here. Shannon had asked me maybe some to show maybe some ribbing or fair isle or something like that, so I'll combine ribbing and a little bit of fair isle. Okay, first I'll do a E-wrap cast on. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see this. Okay, you just make a loop. Okay, if you were going to do a side of a sweater or the seam on a sleeve or something like that, leave yourself enough yarn to sew, to use this as your sewing up the side. But I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to start down here and I'll make a loop. Great, now I can't remember how. Okay, just want to make a small loop, and I'll put it on my leftmost needle to the back, and then I'll just go do this slow. Oh, under and over, under and over, under and over, all the way across. Oops. This has been shown before in another video. I forget who did it. When I do something that needs ribbing, like a mitten or a sleeve or a sweater or anything like that, I like to do those first. And usually I like to do them by hand if I have the time, and then I hang that on the machine. Okay, so I wrap the needles all the way across to the end. Then I'm just going to lay it in the needle, push them in a little bit to hold them in place, to hold the yarn in place, I should say. And then I'll pull the needles one at a time for my first row. When it comes to E-wrapping, I never even bother trying to push the carriage across. It's just too much of a pain. I just automatically do it this way if I'm using a ribbing like this. Okay, and the ribbing cast on is done. Okay, and I hadn't put my yarn in here, so now I'll have to thread my yarn in the carriage. Now I'm set to knit across. Okay, so I have a few rows knit here, and I want to convert these for ribbing. So I would start over on one end and go place my needle. I don't know if you can see this one. Put your needle, your tool in the bottom stitch and unravel all the way down. And then relatch them up one at a time. And you would go either one, miss one, do one, miss one, do one, or you would go two, miss two, do two. It's up to you. The 1-1 ribbing is tighter than a 2-2. And this ribbing, it looks the same on both sides, on wrong or right side. This is fairly thin yarn, so I should have used the smaller key plate, but I just never bothered. Normally I would use a key plate smaller for the ribbing than the main body of a sweater or hat or mitt or whatever it is I'm making. If I was using key plate 3 on a sweater, I would use, well, now that I have the 2.5, I use 2.5, but I would use the 2 normally. Okay, here I'll do it 2 and 2, so you can see you can do 2 by 2 at a time also. Not 2 at a time, but 2 beside each other, which is also quite nice. Here I did 2 together, I'll miss 2. Then I'll do another one beside it, so that's 2 and 2.